Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today I have the best guest of them all, my lovely wife, Bethany Woods. We're going to jump into her perspective and her life as a coach's wife as well as a referee's wife. So without further ado, let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome back once again to the show. We took a little break last week, as you all know. The just senseless tragedy back last week at Appalachia High School, just ridiculous. I needed to take a proverbial moment of silence, a literal moment of silence for us here on the show. I think the day I was going to shoot the show, I was like, I'm just not in the right headspace.
Yeah.
To do that, and so thank you for all of you guys for bearing with me, especially those of you who maybe aren't even in the local community here in Georgia. So anyway, with that being said, though, I have, like I said in the onset, the best of them all, my wife on the show. Babe, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
Excited to be here?
I am. You said I was going to be on here a while ago, and it's just not happened. So
Yeah, you got on Aubrey's show before you got on mine, which is a little jealous about that one, but it's all good. So, guys, you are going to learn probably in a part 2 segment more about our relationship and just a little bit more of our background. But today, I really want Bethany to be able to share more about her perspective as a coach's wife. And then on the back of the show, we'll share a little bit about being a referee's wife as well. But you've been a coach's wife for, I guess, 9 years now.
yeah.
Maybe a little bit more than that if we consider like the kickball.
Oh, we don't need to consider the kickball time.
That was interesting time. So
it was interesting because I was not only coach's wife but also player for some of that. So
yep.
I don't know if we need to really consider that, although there were some learning moments for sure.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. I was coaching women's kickball, and
I guess I wasn't wife at the time, but
yeah, but you're girl dating, whatever. We were in a relationship at that time, but I was coaching like I felt like everybody was in their 30s, 40s, and on up.
Definitely.
I believe.
Probably 30s and 40s would be a young part of the majority.
Yeah.
There.
Outside of you, Deja, and Robbie.
Yeah.
I think everybody else was on up there. But anyway, my point is though.
But love our kickball family.
Yes. Kicking it old school. My dad and my stepmom started that league. I guess it lasted for a few years, actually, 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer than that. So it was a happening place to be in Conyers, Georgia, on most Saturdays or Sundays, most weekends. It was a good place to be. But anyway, all that to say, guys, we're going to jump into just Bethany's perspective as a coach's wife, and the reason I wanted to have you on is because one, you've been a coach's wife for nearly a decade now, but two,
and you say we're not old.
We're not old. We're 29 years old.
If I've been doing this for almost a decade.
Well, that just means we've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But my point is, make me lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
All right, so
this is why I haven't been invited.
So anyway, I want to share a little bit more about this because I think that you're going to be able to hopefully add some value to the lives of our listeners, players, coaches, parents, spouses, whomever listen to the show on a regular basis. And I think that there's going to be some of the conversation is going to be easygoing, I think, as far as like what we're going to start off with of what have you enjoyed most about being a coach's wife, but some of it hasn't always been easy, right? It's been there have been challenges that have come with this from your perspective, obviously from mine as well, trying to balance all of this. And so I guess I'll start with the good of what have you enjoyed most about being a coach's wife over the years?
I think so. And our elite family that you've been coaching for majority of this time, kind of got to hear some of my heart on this at the end of this last season, is just honestly the feedback that I get from the girls saying, just how much you and also my dad is a coach with the Elite Diamonds. And so hearing them sing y'all's praises about how just how much y'all pour into their lives is probably one of the best, like one of the most beneficial things, I think. Like just hearing them say the things that like I know about y'all,
Right.
like I love y'all, you know, with all my heart. And so to hear them talk about just how much you have played a role in their lives and all of that, it just like reiterates what I already know. And I get to share that like with them. And then on the other hand, like not all of our coaching lives have we had Aubrey, but seeing the relationships that have developed with her and a lot of the players, like I feel like is invaluable. Like I can't say like she has so many big sisters because of Elite
True.
that like I just that's so huge because as homeschool parents, one thing we've always like said is like we don't want to have like the weird kid.
Yeah.
And like we want her to be socialized and all the things. And just our living situation alone allows for that, for her to have excellent social skills and all of that. But for her to have the girls that I mean I could name 5 off the top of my hand that have been hugely impactful in her life that like I wouldn't trade that for the world,
No doubt.
them saying, like knock, which of course I go by nicknames, but knock saying, oh, I want to take Aubrey to the movies, but you and Coach D aren't welcome. Like it's just us. Like we're going. I love that. Because she doesn't have that older sister by blood to take her and go do those things, and so she has a lot of older sisters, like chosen family that have taken her under their wing and love and cherish her. So
yeah, I think that's been huge. I mean, it's I've had a lot of proud dad moments thus far with her, just growing up, but seeing her on the ball field with the girls, I've just there's this image in my head of us being at practice. Maddie Speaks, who you guys have seen on the show back in season 1 last year. Maddie is doing push-ups, and Aubrey is sitting on Maddie's back while she's doing push-ups in practice or burpees or something like that.
I think it was burpees because she came back saying like, I know how to do burpees.
Yeah. So, but just that was a small moment that I won't ever forget.
Right.
That's can really be big for her. I mean, she remembers that. I obviously remember it, and so, like you said, just the opportunities to do life with a lot of different people. When you pour into other people and then they give it back to your people,
absolutely.
that makes you feel real good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so memorable moments for you. Whether good or bad, what comes to mind when you think about moments that stand out to you? At least through my coaching career, from because you didn't always come to every single tournament, but now last couple of years you've pretty much been to 90% of tournaments. So in more recent memory than others, probably, what would you say memorable wise?
Well, I'll do a throwback to our kickball days only because you brought it up. But definitely with being a spouse. Well, at the time, I guess we were dating, or we might have been engaged at that point. I can't remember. But being my coach, I quickly had to let you know, like, you can't talk to me the way you talk to everyone else. Because, like, I don't know how to, in my brain, differentiate Coach D with, like, the love of my life.
Yeah.
So you can't yell at me like that. Like, that was just, and I think that was part of you learning as a coach, too. Like, that dealing with older women and, like, more adults than necessarily like teens, that was a time where you were learning that not everyone's coaching style is the same.
Yep.
And so I think even kickball days has probably shaped the way you coach softball, but that's definitely one, because that was like whoa, like you can't talk to me like I can't handle it.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm gonna internalize that way too much. So that was definitely memorable in that stage of life. But
I think before you go to the next one, don't forget your next thought. But like, I remember in some of those moments, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely where I would hear like, man, like men compartmentalize things, women's brains maybe work a little bit different on that front. And like for me, it's like in that moment, I'm coach, and then once I step off the field, I'm just your boyfriend again, or fiance, or whatever the case may be.
I think the saying is like men are waffles and women are spaghetti or something
Yeah.
like that. And yeah, like no, I can't say, well, Coach D feels that way, but no, it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
That definitely shaped the way that I coach now, though. I know that I was way more harsh, I think. And your eyes are telling the story of them own.
Yeah.
Way more harsh than as a young coach coaching, which it puzzles me about myself sometimes, where I'm like, man, how was I not intimidated in some, because I'm 18, 19, 20 years old, coaching women that can be my mom, some my grandmother,
Right.
and I just, whatever, it was what it was.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I think it definitely shaped. I can tell, and I'll. There's not, to me, like, I feel like for you as a coach and just the way your mind works, you're very, like, you remember everything. I don't have that kind of memory, but what sticks out to me most about just times on the field when, especially like you said, there were times where I wasn't going to as many games or whatever season of life, and but going to more games now and having seen you progressed as a coach, like, I think I plus I just know you that one of my favorite parts is, like, I just something can happen on the field, and it's a many of instances, but something can happen on the field or in the dugout or whatever, and I can look at you and, like, you can have the poker face that no one else probably knows what is going on inside your head, but, like, I know what you're thinking, like, by the way you're taking your sunglasses off your head or whatever. Like, I can tell what you're kind of feeling in that moment. And I don't know, sometimes it's just fun for me, and we'll get to the refereeing side of it, but it's fun for me when I know you so well, and I've seen you in that environment, and we've had conversations on the car ride home of, debriefing the game, or, just debriefing emotions of the game, not even like, brass tacks of it, but
right.
But, like, knowing how your brain processes all of those things, it's sometimes I just, like, have these chuckles to myself on the sidelines, like, watching, because I know what you're thinking in that moment, and I don't know, like, sometimes that's just fun.
Especially when you know that nobody else on the field does.
Oh yeah,
like it's just.
I think Dad probably can read you.
He's the closest,
probably
for sure.
second best, but yeah.
Yeah, that's funny, because I mean, typically I'm wearing sunglasses as well. So, and I know eyes tell a story, but the fact that you can read that even without seeing my eyes, it's
yeah.
whether it's posture.
You're on third base, and I'm over here, on the sidelines, and I'm like, oh boy, I could just see something brewing.
So let me pivot from me and back to you a little bit. So, and being a travel ball coach, maybe you don't feel as much of this necessarily, but have there been any pressures or stresses that you felt, whether it be on my behalf or just in general, anything?
I think for me, and I definitely think there could be different pressures from a school ball coach, roles that I haven't experienced. So, just speaking from the travel ball perspective, I think the only pressures that I've really felt are ones I've put on myself. Especially at the beginning, like, I felt like I needed to be at every game, or like I wasn't doing my part or pulling my weight or whatever, even when I was just like, I don't even want to be here. And then, or like, I need to have this relationship with the player or with the family or whatever, and like, no one else made me feel that way. Like, you didn't make me feel that way. None of the parents or the players made me feel those ways. And like, those are just pressures I was putting on myself. And I think part of, like, in this almost decade
Crazy.
of being a coach's life, like, part of what I have really internalized for myself is like, I can make this as good or as bad of a situation as I want it to be. Because I'm only a coach's wife because I want to support what you want to do.
Right.
That's not my choice.
Sure.
But I want to support you in following your dream. And So I had to have a mindset shift of like, maybe we don't agree on every aspect of it all, but I can choose to make it as good or as bad of a situation as I want to. And I don't have to have the pressure of knowing every player intimately the way that, I let those relationships, I guess, become more natural. Aubrey's probably driven most of them.
Sure, she has. No doubt about it.
Because, when she gets close to someone, obviously, like, they're around more. But and I've just clicked with certain players that I maybe haven't spent as much time with, and that's nothing to do with them. That's always a lot of the seasons where I was not ready to mentally do what I needed to do in my mind. I think I probably missed out on some really great relationships because I wasn't looking forward to being there.
We had some longer tenured players
Yeah.
that I think.
And now every season I'm sad because now like we're having like majority senior teams, and then I get close to these girls and they just leave, and I'm
Yeah.
like, me and Aubrey are just over here sad.
I think that the last 4 seasons we've graduated over 30 seniors.
Yeah.
And that's been tough. I mean, first of all, that's tough on everybody in every sense, right? Because like for me as a coach, well, that means I have to go and fill 9 roles every single year.
Yeah.
So from a literal coaching perspective, that is tough in and of itself. But even from your role as a coach's wife, it's like, man, all right, I've got a daughter who looks up to these young ladies as big sisters, and then they're in and out of her life physically, like in that,
Yeah.
geographically speaking, in a month, a year rather.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think to answer the question about the pressures, like it was really, I really only felt pressure that I put on myself. And I think just switching my mentality to like, I can choose to make the best of this situation. And I don't have to feel the pressure of being at every single game or interacting with every single parent, or like majority of the times when I'm talking to the parents, like I'm not talking to them about softball. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about what books we're reading, or we're talking about whatever. And then even when I'm talking to the girls, like I know them as, I don't know them as player. I know them as person, and I think I get to speak into their lives in a different way than even you and dad can, because one, I'm not their coach, and I'm a female, and I just have a different role in their life of I can be their encourager, or I can, I can be the stand-in mom that can't make it to the whatever.
Yep.
And putting on myself like that, like I get to be those things for those girls, it just takes the pressure out of it.
Perspective. And I think to me, that's the biggest thing. And I know that, even early on, like this, like I said in the onset, this wasn't easy for us. Like this was putting a strain on our relationship for some time, I believe,
Yeah.
right? And I think perspective matters because it for you, I feel I can sense when it became a have to versus a get to. And I feel like now you look at this as a get to in terms of being able to be whatever you need to be for the girls. Like you said, if it's a mentor, if it's a mom, it's a big sister, whatever that case may be,
Yeah.
because we're not old, so you can still be a big sister.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know if I see that as much, but I always see myself a little bit older, but
sure, but either way, I'm saying that you can be what you need to be for that player, for that person
yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? Challenges, you said, so we talked about pressures, albeit you say unnecessary pressure that you may have put on yourself, not from anybody else. Although you were asked about a lot when you weren't there, and then now that you're there pretty much all the time, it's like, everybody wants to know, see you, see Aubrey, whatever. It's a great environment having you there, and I love having you there, except for when it's rainy and cold, and it's gonna make Aubrey unhappy and ultimately you unhappy. But challenges wise, what have been maybe some of the challenges that you faced as a coach's wife?
I think honestly, I think that time, like just managing time, which I'm sure you're going to ask me how we've done that. He starts off saying like, I want you to come on as this expert in being
Oh
a
my
coach's
gosh.
spouse. And I'm like, I'm no expert. Like for a lot of time, I feel like we didn't do this really well, but I think managing time. So, there were how many seasons before we even had Aubrey? I'm not really sure.
There were a few seasons. It was really more the school ball seasons is what I was coaching. I helped at a couple of local high school teams.
Yeah.
And then we had Aubrey in November of 2019. I started the team in March of 2019. So we'd only done one summer.
Yeah, mostly just school ball. I think prior to having Aubrey, because being a mom and a spouse to a coach is different even still. So I kind of see them as two different things. So pre-Aubrey, more school ball, I guess just not being selfish with my time with you. So you've always been the type to have your hand in a lot of pots or however the saying goes.
A lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, a lot of irons in the fire. So I've been all of our relationship, you've been a busy person. It's not like you just before coaching, you were just at home all the time. But we've also had we've been so fortunate that majority of our relationship, both of us have been extremely flexible with our time, that we make our schedules majority of that time. And so, I guess post college, whatever. I mean, you still made your schedule in college. Let's be real about that. But
I did not the entire time.
That's a story for another day. But anyway, so I think not being selfish with my time with you, because like I said, it was a mindset shift for me, because I think probably one of the things you dreaded hearing the most from me was well, you're just spending time with your girls. They were your girls. And I was well, you're not home because you're with your girls. And that was just I guess I think it was something we both needed to learn from, not just me, is balancing that time. And then throw in COVID and throw in having a daughter and life just looked completely different. And then it was
go from not being home to home.
Yeah, we were home. And so I got very used to having you home with us. And then, which I know that COVID, everyone has different views of the COVID time, but truly for us, I look at it as one of the biggest blessings on our family, not obviously
yes,
I don't know,
barring
all of the tragedy that comes with it.
Yeah.
But the time that we got together, it was a refreshing for my soul of what I think we needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also just that time of transitioning where we were diving more into travel ball and all of that coming out of it. And so I think had we not had that time, that was invaluable time that we had all together especially when she was so young. And so then it was to me, I think it was just, that's when I started going, well, I don't have to be at every game. If nothing else, I can use having Aubrey as an excuse. This baby does not have to be at every game. And even some of the ones we did go to, I was and we're leaving now. And then, and I will say having dad join the coaching staff. So having mom there at the games with me was the biggest blessing, especially having Aubrey, there. But, I think and also seeing I think in my mind, one of the biggest challenges that I had was I didn't look at going to the softball tournament as quality time with you. You were oh, I want you there. And I was you're not even playing. I don't get to watch you play. You're not putting on those baseball pants and getting out there. Yeah. You're just standing there, which I knew you were obviously doing more than just standing there. But
no, just standing there. That's all. I'd go be a statue.
Yeah. But I'm I'm not getting to watch you play. And then it's not we get to hang out. You're in that mode when you're coaching, and I'm not wanting to be a distraction or whatever. And so I'm okay, well, I guess we can go and hang out in the car on the way there and on the way back, but that's it. And then as I started to just, as you and I worked together on those challenges, I think I started to see it as it's not just your girls, but it's our family. And it is time that we get to spend together, because if I'm not there, even if I rode with you, didn't participate in watching, and then rode back with you, I can't participate in conversation about it.
Right.
And so the time that like we spend talking about stuff you want to do for the team, or stuff that happens on a tournament, or, you know, the hours that you spend planning practices and, you know, all those things, like when I bought into being more, even if I'm not giving, you know, like I'm never going to be like, here's some coaching advice. Like I know nothing about softball. Like
Hey, I'll
ball or
take
strike, I don't know
anything
what.
you can give. I'll take it.
But like you know, I offer, you know, in other ways advice, and or if nothing else, just like a listening ear, or, you know, maybe handling teen girls could be better done this way, or understanding this about how her brain is probably working in this moment, you know, like
Right.
those are things that like conversations we couldn't have if I wasn't there, or if I wasn't involved in actively listening. And so overcoming like the feeling of like, that's yours, you're coaching, that's your thing, and I'm here for it, but I'm also like whatever,
Yeah.
you know, separated from it, to embracing that more as like this is something for us. And that was, I think, the biggest challenge for us.
You know, I think about this for, you know, one, yes, COVID was like a nice, that's such a terrible way to put
It's
that.
so hard to talk about COVID.
It was a hard reset for us,
Yeah.
in terms of lifestyle, and I think it was, like you said, it was a great reset for us in terms of the way we lived. I think you also have a unique perspective too, because a lot of times when coaches' wives, especially in the travel ball world, coaches' wives, well, usually the wife or coaches' spouses, how about that? Whether it's the wife or the husband, usually they also have a kid on the team,
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah.
have a blood kid on the team, and I think that's what partly has made this some of the now we're on the opposite end of the growing pains of that part of it, but like the growing pains were there for us. I feel because you didn't have a kid on the team, and so you didn't have a necessarily have a vested interest,
Yeah.
and in the early goings.
Yeah. I never really thought of it that way. That a lot of coaches are coaching because, oh, my daughter wants to play, I'll coach a team.
Yeah,
And so then, well, mama's going to come watch their daughter
the
play.
daughter and their husband, or vice versa,
Yeah.
whatever.
So,
Yeah, and so I think about it from that perspective, because honestly, when I think about, I'm throwing a set out there, but I'd imagine the majority of teams that we play against, it's coached by a mom or a dad that has a player on the team,
yeah.
you know, and so, but we didn't, we mean I in that moment, but we didn't make this decision as a family to get into travel ball because of Aubrey. Aubrey didn't exist at that time.
Yeah.
We got into it for, you know, a different reason of just trying to help the community of softball players in this area. And so that, as you were talking, I thought about that because that's kind of an interesting. I would like to know the stats on how
Yeah.
many coaches, dads and moms out there get out there because they have kids out there. Because I don't even know if I want to coach Aubrey ever. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. She may have qualms about that. She
Yeah,
may
she
want me
kind
to.
of perked up over there, but
Yeah, she's offset, so she may want me to coach her. But we'll see how that goes. But anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a very quick break, and we're gonna come back, wrap up some of the coach's wife conversation, maybe delve into a little bit of the referee wife conversation as well, because I think that will be an interesting perspective. I'm intrigued about a particular question to see what she has to say about that, and then we'll wrap up the show on the back end of that break, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed this far, and we'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show once again. Hope you have enjoyed it again thus far. So, jumping right back in, babe, I want to talk about the role that you've played. So, you mentioned earlier during the time with Elite Diamonds, pretty much everybody who listens to the show know I coach a travel ball team. It's called Elite Diamonds. We've had it for a number of years now. I keep forgetting. 6 now, I think.
It's 2019. Right?
Yeah, so 6th year, I think. We just finished our 6th year. I don't remember. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yes, we're about to wrap up our 6th year. And then we'll be into our 7th in 2025. That's right. So anyway, 6 years almost, whatever. We've had the team. And just for you, again, as a coach's wife, someone who is trying to be supportive in a lot of different ways, what role have you feel like you've played the most just with the team in general, besides moral support?
Yeah. I think, well, first when said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna do this travel ball thing," just always dreaming the dream with you on. I feel like uh, God has put us together in such a way, like we really complement each other's strengths and that kind of a thing. That like you're probably more of an analytical mind and I'm more of a creative mind. Not that you have no creative strength.
It's very minimal though.
different types of creative, I think. But 'cause you're very eloquent with your words. But I think, dreaming the dream with you on a lot of different things. You know, so for those of you who don't know me or any of my background, in college I went to school for art, which is a story for another day. But I spent,
Good part two on that one.
yeah, I spent a lot of time doing graphic design, and that was something that I just like really fell in love with. And a couple of the things that I did not throw away from college.
Yep.
But since then, I've done some logos and designs for different companies and things, and so it's like without fail, Demetrius will be like, "Oh, I was thinking like, let's do this. Can you make this happen?" And then it's like, "Okay, here it is." And he's like, "Wow," like
Yeah,
they get supportive on this, but
low key, I guess high key plugging my wife right now, but like your abilities are incredible in terms of pace, like ability to do it. Like I'm on the phone with a friend the other night. She's on the call with us, and he and I are still talking or whatever, and then she walks away for like 4 minutes, 5 max.
it's definitely probably 15.
6 minutes, and she comes back with a graphic design in her hands that she's done on the iPad. I'm like, I've said 25 words since she left. Like, what the heck? It's just why. Like, you're correct. Like, sure, I may be eloquent with my words, but like in terms of creativity and being able to put what's in my brain on paper, like I have no ability to do that. And so when people do things that I can't do at all, or I can barely do it, I have that much more admiration for it. Like that's how I am with baseball and softball catchers, because I was a pitcher, and being a catcher was just not in my thing, right?
Yeah.
So just I admire that. Sorry, I cut you off, but carry on.
No, you're fine. Back to me. No, but so you were like, let's do Elite Diamonds, and so I think we probably brainstormed the team and the colors and the whole nine, and then we of course
colors we were being lazy. I was being lazy.
You were being lazy because he was like, "Oh well, I've got a bunch of Georgia State gear, and it's already royal blue, so we'll just stick with that."
Yep.
But so anyway, then of course we needed jerseys, and so that was something that you gave me your vision for it, and we kind of just sat down and talked through that, and then we came up with a logo design for Elite, which has morphed since the beginning in some respects, but it's also stayed very consistent in others, and so
that E has been the same.
Yeah,
the whole time.
So we did that, and then so I definitely helped in that regard. And then when you started the social media page, without fail, I'll say, well, if you give me a little more time, time on some of these things. I can make them more to my standard.
Sure.
But without fail, he'd be like, okay, so I need to post today, and can you make this happen? Or so-and-so just got committed. We need a committed post or whatever. And so, coming up with those game day posts, that kind of thing, like all those graphics, usually that's you saying, what do you think? We need something like this. Or I love the way that this team did this. How can we do something similar or whatever? So that's definitely been like an active role that I've played outside of just attendance and support. But
Yeah, I mean, some of you on the show obviously know, like, I've always looked at running this team as a ministry, and so, like, you joining this ministry, like, actively with me has been huge, and I think that that's one of the ways that I've appreciated the most. Not just because I don't really have any expertise in it, but more so because it's something that I know that you enjoy, that you're good at it, really really good at it actually, and you do it very well, right, and at a high rate. So anyway, all that to say, when we started the social media, because I was always like, I don't ever want to do that, you know. But then I looked at it as an opportunity to highlight the ladies and give them a spotlight, and it was kind of cool because I mean I feel like in some ways your work became a trendsetter for some other teams that we were playing in the Georgia, at least the Georgia circuit. I'll say that. So I won't say that we've like, trendsetters across the world or nation or anything like that. But for sure, like you started to see other social media accounts pop up from other teams, especially when we started doing Takeover Tuesdays. Other teams started doing those little bits. It was just kind of cool.
We saw some very similar commitments.
Yeah, we did. We did some behind the scenes conversations with some other teams. I'm like, okay, yep.
All right, for you.
You see it. You see it. You gotta trademark that. But no, I appreciated that. But moving on from that a little bit. So advice wise, right? So you have been obviously supportive and using your graphic design degree in a way that, again, it's been huge for the program, I believe. But advice for maybe a newly married coach's wife or spouse in general.
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice would be take ownership in some part, like at least like go into the coaching position. I guess speaking mostly about travel ball, because I think it would be different if we were talking about the college level or high school or whatever. But I think even then, finding a way to like make it, y'all are a team to do that. I know that your strength is going to come in the softball expertise of all of that. That I have nothing. I could offer nothing there.
Short selling it, but
I don't know if I've ever swung a bat at a ball. So, which is weird to think about. But anyway, so I can't offer any help in that regard, but I've found, ways that I can help, from, coming up with survivor challenges for, that practice that y'all did, or, in the ways that I've supported with social media. I think just figuring that out, like if your spouse if you see a way to add value to what they're doing to the team in a skill set that your spouse doesn't have, like helping in that regard. Like if I was, a former softball pitcher, then I would add expertise in,
sure,
let me come in and help your pitchers. Or if I had, a background in teaching, then maybe I'm offering expertise in, dealing with a group of teens, or something of that nature, or the best ways to communicate different learning styles and things like that. And like, but finding, like, helping to pick up on your spouse's weaknesses and offer strength there is just going to build that y'all are going to have commonality and buy-in both to what they're doing, And I think that buy-in is just huge.
Right.
And just picking that up from the beginning, like I just think if from the beginning I had bought in as being an active role and not just an active supporter, I think would have made some differences and maybe hindered some challenges. I think we still would have had to have those growing pains, but
Yep.
I think that's my biggest advice is like just enter into something like that you're both bought into. And if you're just both not, like maybe you need to reevaluate if it's even the right decision. Like
Absolutely.
because there have been many of conversations we've been like, I don't know if we're doing this anymore. Like, let's not or whatever. And so like both of you have to be bought in, and then I think that will just help the team, help your marriage, help all of it. It's just like being on the same page that way and helping to pick up each other's strengths.
And making sure that I think piggybacking on that, like making sure that you guys are just simply on the same page. Like whether it is, I say just because it's a big deal, but whether you are in the supporter role or in the role of having an active impact on the team or in some capacity, like whatever that may look like, I just think it's incredibly important that you like both parties know.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I
I
mean?
mean, communication on all fronts. Like if something isn't working in any aspect of it, like you typically practice Tuesday, Thursdays, sometimes Sundays, in off season, I guess it's more that way. But if those, if you're doing that for a long time and something's not working, like, hey, it's not working for me for you to be gone that way. Or if you're going to be with the team on Tuesdays and Thursdays, then we need Fridays for us. Or like setting boundaries that you're both comfortable with around it is going to be like so vital, because I think in any marriage, like communication is like the number one thing, because there are still things that like we don't see eye to eye on, and there are conversations that we have a lot, and then we're just like, all right, we're putting that back up on the shelf because we're still not quite agreeing there, but it's something we take down and wrestle with and see if whatever, but it's something that we're actively communicating about. And like the more you can communicate about something that is inevitably going to take up a lot of your time, because you don't get into coaching for the money or for the relaxation and
I've been waiting on that part.
Time. I was trying to refrain.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw under the bus, man. I've gotten over the years, I've gotten so much crap from my wife, to say it just bluntly, about the amount that I do not charge for my time, whether it be for the team or I guess more specifically, not really for the team. I charge the appropriate amount for the team. She would disagree with that as well. But mostly for like doing one-on-one hitting and pitching lessons and things like that.
I just know the value of your time and the value of your skill set, and I believe you are not putting the right price on it.
This is one of those shelf conversations that she's talking. We'll just put that back on the
it's
shelf.
like, okay, well, whatever. Glad you feel that way, but
yeah.
And then you give your rationale, and I'm like, agree to disagree.
All right, so we're gonna pivot a little bit to being a referee's wife. Okay. So I know that honestly you've actually been a referee's spouse, girlfriend, whatever, for longer than you've been a coach's one, because we refereed together, which is awesome.
Yeah.
At Georgia State University, intramurals. Man, that was such a fun time.
Oh my gosh.
College life was cool and all, obviously, but doing intramurals and doing that together, to me, was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, you bought into that first, and
I don't even remember why or how.
Well, you got connected with the intramurals, and I thought you were doing some like even high school and like
I was
doing
some
stuff, whatever you want to call that.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it was,
but like, and then
so you were doing that before,
and then like little kids flag football major.
Yeah.
We were doing some of that stuff, yeah.
So you were doing that, and then I don't remember what, since it's hard to say, like, we didn't really have like a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior
Yeah,
year
I was
because we
like,
graduated in 3 years. So it's hard for me sometimes, like, they all just blend.
yep,
It was like we were just in school for like a long
a
time
long time for 3 years.
straight. Like, we didn't take breaks. We went through the summer. So it's hard to like put it into when it was. But anyway, so I don't know. I was just going to flag football with you. Like, I just went to
Yes,
watch the intramural teams, and then I was like, if I'm gonna sit here and freeze, I might as well run up and down the field. And so
make some
then,
money, throw a couple flags.
yeah, exactly. So
Yep.
then we started doing that together, which was incredibly fun.
Yep.
We did flag football, we did sand volleyball, court volleyball.
Sand volleyball, man.
What else do we do?
Obviously basketball.
Yeah. That's probably also a story for another day.
Yeah,
but
we'll save that one back. We'll
we'll
give a
circle
teaser.
back on part 2 of Bethany's terrible time.
Bethany's basketball shenanigans. Okay, so I'm a referee, as a lot of you know here on the show, and I think I'm entering my 9th year being a Georgia high school basketball referee. So I don't do any other sports. Although Bethany would probably be cool if I did football or baseball or whatever.
Yes, I would love for you to do those.
And you know what? When I decide to hang up the coaching shoes someday in the future or whatever, I may consider umpiring baseball again. But I don't. Here's the thing, guys. I don't like the cold. I don't like the cold, and baseball season starts in the cold.
Yeah.
I did not like playing in it.
Football ends in the cold.
Do what?
Football ends in the cold.
Yes, it ends in the cold and it starts in the cool.
Sometimes you're out there in the rain.
Yeah, so I'm like, basketball, like, unless it's flooding, it's not gonna get canceled, and I'm not gonna be uncomfortable.
Right.
Unless every now and then the gym is like, they don't like to turn on the AC or nothing.
My gosh, yeah.
I'm like, we're all sweating out there. Poor big boys and girls out there. So they're banging in the post, man, just dripping sweat. But so anyway, as a basketball referee's spouse, I gotta ask. So what's that? Talk me through that. Like, what is that? What's that been like for you?
I'll start with a positive. I'll go to a negative, and then I'll go back to a positive. So having started, I don't think you had done basketball before I started that season with basketball in college. So starting that together and getting to like that be something that we did together, for the most part, when it was within my wheelhouse, I really enjoyed that, and seeing your passion for that grow. Like, I love watching you coach, but there's a different side of refereeing to coaching to me that there are definitely aspects of that I like a lot, more so than being a coach's wife, I guess selfishly. But so getting to start that journey together is like one of my favorite things. Like, even though some of that was not my favorite for myself, but getting to start that together was definitely a positive. And then I will say, like, one of the negatives that is similar to coaching was like when you were doing, so after we had graduated and when you had started doing that again, because I guess you didn't start right away.
What?
Coaching? Refereeing? Did you start?
No, like, as soon as we got home, I mean, we graduated in May of 2016, got married, came home that summer, obviously started working, and then basketball season started in November.
Okay.
So 2016 I started.
So
we were home before basketball season started.
I have a love-hate relationship with basketball. I've gotten more into it. Oh. But as a sport, it's not my favorite to watch. Like, we played some, like, during high school. I mean, not high school. I'm not a sporty person. Yeah. I played zero sports in high school. It's more theater.
But don't let her fool you. She's a hell of a co-ed intramurals quarterback for us when we did play co-ed intramurals.
I did do some pitching for our kickball team.
Yep.
But I've only gotten into sports because of you. because that's just a way that we can spend time together. And so that's how I hooked you. I was like, well, he's into sports, dadgummit. So gotta add this to my belt. No, but I've always loved going to games, and so I love being around sports. I'm not a sporty person by nature, so I don't have like that skill set in me to like be. I've never invested time in developing that skill set, I guess I should say. I never want to say I can't do something, so
Sure.
I'd never want Aubrey to say she can't do something. But anyway, so I'm not a sporty person by nature, but I love to, like, we go to ball games all the time. But basketball has just never been my go-to sport. Like I said, I've gotten into it more, but when you first like after we got married and you were refereeing a lot. Like he was literally watching basketball on our honeymoon, which is why I laughed because that's why I say I have a love-hate relationship with it because I'm like, all right, guess he's watching this game again, and then you're yelling at the TV, and here I am.
That was Steph Curry's unanimous MVP season. They're in the playoffs, Western Conference Finals. They're down 3-1. They're down 3-1 in the series to Kevin Durant and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And our honeymoon just happened to fall right in the middle of the series.
Yay us!
Whatever. I'll save that for part 2.
Okay.
Carry on.
But anyway, so since that's not my number one sport to go watch, it was similar to with travel ball. I'm like, he's like, oh, come with me to these games, and I'm like, yay! I get to go sit in uncomfortable bleachers. And you're not even playing this game, and so it's like, and it's like, take me to a baseball game any day. I'll go watch a baseball game any day. I'll go watch football any day. I mean, if I could get him on skates and you could start reffing hockey, like that would be ideal.
Probably not gonna happen.
No, I don't think it'll ever happen. But anyway, that would be really cool. I'm still pushing to get Aubrey in. I'm really pushing to how inside out she's playing hockey. Yeah. I'm like, ooh, Aubrey.
There we go.
But anyway, she'll be my in to all the hockey games. But so anyway, I didn't want to go just watch basketball, and that was something that was kind of like I had to learn to enjoy to watch the game in a different light. I was watching you and your skills, you seeing the call. Because one of the things about basketball is like versus, let's say, football, you have a little bit of time to throw your flag. And so you can the play can happen and you have a second in your mind to like, did this contact happen or did they jump when they shouldn't have, or, whatever. You have a second and then you can throw your flag. But in basketball, it's like instant. And yes, I refereed basketball. I never once blew my whistle. And so I could not physically, I beat him on the testing portion of refereeing basketball, but when it came to blowing the whistle, I just could not see it, confirm it in my mind, and blow the whistle fast enough to like feel confident about my calls. And so even when they were yelling at me in the face, and so like to watch you and admire your skill, and it's also funny because I'm watching you run up and down a court with people who are playing the game, but also other referees who are typically not as in shape as you, or just in a different shape for the shape they're in and the age they're in, because a lot of referees are older. And so there are definitely some that are like high quality. I'm not like downgrading the people you referee with, but so if y'all are watching, sorry.
Some studs.
No, but it's just I get to see a different side of the game, and I've learned more about basketball and appreciated the sport itself going to more and more games. And so that was just something like as a referee's wife, like getting over. And then some of my funniest moments as a referee's wife, like sitting in the stands, majority of the times I'm at schools that like I don't know anyone. They don't know me. they probably didn't see us walk in together. If we walked in together, like some schools we do, some we do not. But it's always funny the questions I'll get in the crowd, which usually it's different now that I'm going with Aubrey too. But usually I'm like to myself, I'm not really, I don't try to cheer one way or another. Usually, so people are always kind of questioning,
Yeah.
They're like, so who are you here for?
You might be there with a book,
Yeah, I'll probably bring my Kindle, or whatever. And so they're like, so who are you here for?
Like, why are you here?
Right. And so it's always funny answering that question, like depending on the vibe I get from the game, I guess, the intensity that's going on, I'll answer it honestly majority of the time. And I'll be like, "Oh, I'm here with the referee." And it's always funny the look on people's face if they've not asked this before the game started and they've asked this mid-game and they've been yelling at the referees or whatever. Even if it's a majority of people as they cheer for their team, there's always going to be half the court or half the stands that disagree with the call. Even if they know that it's the right call, they're gonna yell that it's a bad call.
Right. Absolutely.
And so inevitably that person that I'm sitting next to has disagreed with something you and the other guys and gals on the court have done. And so it's always funny the faces I get of like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, and I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, you thrive on that. And so I'm like, it is totally fine. Like, continue to enjoy your experience, but like that's always a funny thing as I'm sitting there watching the game.
Absolutely. I love hearing. That's like some of my favorite parts.
Oh yeah, like every time we get in the car, you're like, "Do you hear anything good up there?" Like, I'm like, I really mostly tune that out, but
because I don't hear anything. I tune it out as well. Like I'm, as a ref, I'm on the court. It's my team, which is my two partners, and then I'm listening for the voices of players and coaches. And
yeah, well, and I'm not a confrontational person by nature, so. But I don't want to hear someone saying something about you. Like, that's just not, I don't enjoy that to the extent you do. And so I do just kind of typically tune that out.
Well, I don't say I enjoy it.
I think you thrive off of like, a
little bit of drama is never hurt nobody,
Yeah. There are definitely referees who are like, don't ever disagree with me. But you're like, if I'm not making someone mad, I'm not doing my job right. Like,
right, especially if I am convicted that I'm right.
Yeah.
That's, ref, we all miss calls, of course. And so, you got to take the punches. When you're wrong, you're wrong, and you got to own up to it, man up to it, or woman up to it, or whatever, and you live with the result of what you get from fans, as you should.
Yeah.
It's you got to have a thick skin there. So, but I guess I'll ask, what have you learned being a coach's wife and a referee's wife, I guess? What have you learned about refs dealing with coaches and how coaches deal with refs or even umpires? Is there anything that you can point to that you're like, I found that interesting over the years with the way they deal with each other, or just knowing the fact that I do both and the way that I deal with each other when I'm in the opposite role?
It's funny because as much as you know the game, like you could go and pick up basketball, like not at like a professional level, but you could go to the gym and pick up basketball and you know how to play the game. And you could go and play baseball to this day, and being a coach, like you know the rules of the game. But then you also know like what the referees are looking for. You know how like that they maybe weren't in the best position to make a call.
Mm-hmm.
Or that like when it's a out call at the plate, you're more listening for the ball to hit the glove. Like those certain things that the average coach doesn't maybe know as much of because you've been on the other side of it.
Right.
So when there's a disagreement with a referee, like I guess I'm talking more softball here, but when there's a disagreement, I'm like, well, I know he knows his stuff. like and usually you're like, dude, you're wrong. Like, you're like trying to be so respectful because you have been in that role that you know to go to the referees. Like, I know that you coached our catchers on you've coached them to have the utmost respect for the umpire behind the plate, like that, because they can make or break your game. Like, if you
100%.
piss them off, like it can be over with. Like, hopefully that they have a thicker skin than to call that way, but subconsciously, being on their good side is always better than not. And having been on the, you've been in the stripes, you've been a blue, like, how all of that goes.
Right.
And so I think you coach in a way your players on how to have, obviously, like we said, it's kind of a ministry as well. And we're pouring into the girls to be, good humans as well. Yeah. But treating the umpires, with respect can get you a long way. Like I've seen you interact with coaches on the court, like when the coach comes at you with respect, or they lay some things out for you, or you have like kind of a working relationship with them, that you're not going to call any differently for their team.
No.
But maybe you hear a word you shouldn't have heard, that, certain situations that maybe they're towing a line, they don't need to be towing, that probably sounded really country, that you don't need to be towing. Sorry. I just like hurt myself.
Little Mima right there.
Yeah, I did. But if they're towing a line, having that relationship with them, you might give a warning that to a guy who's just being super disrespectful, you're just going to make the call immediately.
Yeah.
So like I said, you're not going to call, a foul the opposite way or whatever, but you're going to have certain allowances for people who are treating you with respect.
A little more rope.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen it in that way. Like, I don't know necessarily if that answers the question, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's always there's a fine line depending on the person that you're connecting with, and back to, I guess, my coaching, the coaching version of me. Typically, I'm a very good reader of the room with officials, because I is one, but because I am one, though, like, if I do feel like he's wrong, I'll typically try to tell him in a way that is respectful, unless he's not being the official that I want him to be.
Yeah. And you have a thin rope for people who abuse their power.
Yes.
And so when you feel like someone's just like a little too big for their britches, and
that's a good way to put it,
and put in some power behind them that they're wielding incorrectly, it's like, well, one, first of all, pipe down. Two, you're actually wrong. Yeah. And so, like, in those instances, I've seen where you're like, you're not going to put up with that. And sometimes that, gets you out of there. But, dad's usually got your back, or whatever. But, because you are on the other side as well, it is, you kind of can treat that differently than probably most coaches would. But you also just know, like, you can know without a doubt, like, the right or wrong there.
Yeah.
And so I think can sometimes be frustrating when they're.
Yeah, not that I'm always right. I'm sure I've argued stuff that I've been wrong about, but if I'm adamant about it, I'm very convicted that I'm right about it. And it's also because I see it from the perspective that they should have seen it.
Yeah.
Or like you said, I know on a ball field where, a girl gets hosed at second base because she's trying to steal. I know where he should be. Yeah. To be able to see that. And if he made the wrong call that I know was wrong, and he wasn't where he was supposed to be because he was either A, being lazy, or B, didn't know where he should have been.
Yeah.
To make the best call for the play. That's where I'm like, so usually when I argue, it's because I know that they were out of play. Something was wrong about where they were.
Their positioning.
Therefore, I know they needed help.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that, and I see, like, one of the things that's easiest for me from our time refereeing basketball, I can guarantee you I didn't blow my whistle, but I knew what position to be in.
That's right. Got that right on the test.
I was like, I got that right on the test, like I know where I need to be. And so like as I watch you on the court, like I see the positioning, I see the rotations, and I know, where you need to be to make the call. And if you're making a call from somewhere else
From
out of your
Timbuktu.
zone, like I'm like, ooh, that didn't have a good look to it. Even if it was the right call, it doesn't look good or whatever, And so like those are some kinds of things that it's like having the knowledge I have while I watch you, like that probably, I mean, I don't know, but most referee spouses probably have not also refereed unless they're doing that together. But if they're just there spectating and it's not like something that they do together, they might not know some of those things.
Right, and
too.
because you've refereed before, like sometimes I get in the car and I was like, oh, I had a questionable one or whatever. Like, do you remember that, or what did you think about tonight, or was there something that stood out? Because it's like, all right, well, if he's calling something over there, and I'm sure that you're assuming, well, he was probably reaching to help out a partner or to help clean something up or whatever the case may have been. But again, it's just like I said, it's just an interesting perspective because you have gotten a chance to be a coach's wife, but also be a referee and be a referee's wife. So it's an interesting blend that we have in that department. But I know we've gotten a little longer than I wanted to get, so I want to kind of wrap up the show a little bit. Just everybody kind of hear a little bit of advice from you. Maybe it's for a referee's wife or spouse or coach's wife or spouse. Just one piece of advice that you would give everybody, and then I'm going to wrap up with our thought you should know moment.
I'll do this towards advice for a coach's spouse, because I feel like my only advice for a referee spouse is like not to let the fans get to you either, especially if you're going and actively watching.
Yeah.
Like not letting that get to you or whatever. But other than that, I feel like I don't really have anything there to add.
Just go enjoy the sport.
Yeah, just enjoy the game, the concessions, whatever you can. That way, and so yeah, that would be that. But for coaches' spouses, I feel like my biggest advice, and I'll keep it brief because I feel like I've probably beat this horse dead, but just communicate and set boundaries on what works best for y'all as far as like the way you spend your time, especially if you have, I guess not even especially if you have children, but even with, especially if your child's not playing the sport that they're coaching. I feel like just being on the same page, or at least be actively working to be, and actively communicating about what are your needs. If like if I'm going to go to the game, I need to be comfortable. I need to have a good seat. Like me and Aubrey are not going to be in the sun 24/7. Like that is not happening. I'm not going to listen to her whine all day, or all weekend in some cases. So
Sure.
Setting those boundaries of like, what's going to make this the best situation for the both of us? How can I support him to make it easier for him? How can he support me to make it easier on me? And how can we delegate that time? But just setting those boundaries and being really clear about your needs, like I feel like is probably my biggest advice.
And guys, those of you listening or watching on YouTube or wherever you may be, like, I hope you get a lot out of that, because I feel like the bottom line to that is communication. And whether you are a coach's spouse or a player or whatever the case may be, like communication, it goes a long way in regards to the relationship that you may be in. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to share our thought you should know moment, and today, for the right reasons, I feel it's a little bit longer than normal. And actually, normally my thought you should know moment is just me just sharing something out of thin air that I think I thought you should know. Maybe something I saw or read or watched this week. But this is the at the recording of the show. This is the 23rd anniversary of 9/11, and so I just wanted to take a moment here for those of you who want to watch the next couple of minutes or listen the next couple of minutes. I just want to read to you just a quick excerpt, and because I think in the climate that we live in today, whether you are a high school player, a middle school player, a coach, a parent, whomever, some of you rather weren't even born when September 11th, 2001 came around. Some of you are, were living through different times of life well before 9/11 even took place, and you're able to see kind of how things have truly changed since then. And but also, I feel like without being too controversial with this was the year of an Olympics, and every year the Olympics takes place typically, it always is followed by a presidential election. And it blows me away because I feel such a sense of camaraderie during the Olympics
100%.
as a country. And then I feel the exact opposite, unfortunately. Moments later, after the final flame has been blown out for the Olympics, and then the Paralympics follows right after. And then once that flame is blown out, which it was just blown out earlier this week, like it's like, all right, well now let's get back to business in terms of figuring out who the next leader of the free world is going to be. But all that to be said, I want us to just take a moment to remember. All right, so without being said, here's my thought you should moment. Okay. It says here, on September 11th, 2001, the world watched in shock and sorrow as a series of coordinated terrorist attacks unfolded in the United States. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost that day, forever altering the course of history. This day, now known simply as 9/11, serves as a poignant reminder of both the fragility and resilience of the human spirit. In the early morning hours, 4 commercial airplanes were hijacked by terrorists. 2 of these planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, causing the iconic structures to collapse in a matter of hours. Another plane struck the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, while the fourth, United Flight 93, crashed into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers bravely attempted to overcome the hijackers. The aftermath of 9/11 saw an outpouring of global solidarity and compassion. First responders, many of whom sacrificed their lives, became heroes overnight. Communities came together to support one another, and nations around the world stood in unity against the threat of terrorism. The events of that profoundly impacted countless lives and led to significant changes in global security and policy. As we reflect on the tragedy of 9/11, we honor the memory of those who perished and bravery of those who responded. We remember the families who lost loved ones and the resilience of a nation that came together in the face of unspeakable horror. Today, we stand united in our commitment to peace, justice, and the enduring spirit of humanity. I share that with you, and especially that very last sentence, the enduring spirit of humanity. I just want to remind everybody, man, I know we've got global listeners, which I'm grateful for the show, but I know that 99% of our listeners are here right in the States. I urge you, I encourage you, I implore you, just remember humanity, common decency, and ultimately love is really what makes this world go round. And as I always end the show with that exact statement, like this is a prime reason why I share that. And I think that sometimes even on sports podcasts, right, we need a little bit of a reminder, like, hey, listen, go out, you wake up in the morning, try to get yourself in the right framework to just be a good person, and just remember that everybody's going through something different, and so you never know like what the person that you may walk past or open the door for or not or whatever, you don't know what they're going through, and so choose love first. And that is my ultimate, ask of you guys today. So, with that being said, babe, thank you for being on the show. Took 37 episodes to get you here, and
Hopefully, it won't take another 37.
it will not. I promise. Part 2 will be coming pretty soon. I know. I feel confident that a lot of you listeners are going to want to hear the second part of this show and get to learn a little bit more of our backstory and how Aubrey came to be and all the other jazz. So
we won't go into detail.
Anything. Anyway, with that being said, guys, we're gonna wrap this show up like we always do. So please let every single thing you do be done in love, because at the end of the day, That is truly what makes the world go round. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.